The colony of New Eden went dark on a quiet Tuesday. The silence from the distant settlement came without warning. For 3 days, Earth Command tried to contact them. They sent messages. They used emergency channels. No one answered. On the 4th day, Captain Da-hyun Park received his orders. His ship, the UES Horizon, would travel to New Eden to find out what happened. Park was a careful man with 20 years of service. He had seen combat against pirates and weathered space storms. Nothing prepared him for what awaited. Dropping out of hyperspace in 10 seconds, announced Navigator Binho at the controls. The crew tensed as the Horizon emerged into New Eden's star system. Long-range scanners immediately detected debris in orbit. "Captain, I'm reading wreckage consistent with our defense satellites," reported Officer Wonshik from the sensor station. His face paled as more data came in. "Sir, there's a lot of debris." Park nodded grimly. "Take us in closer." Full defensive posture. As the Horizon approached the planet, Communications Officer Young Mei tried repeatedly to raise someone on the surface. No response on any frequency, "Captain." The ship settled into orbit above New Eden's main settlement. The colony had been established 15 years ago, built around a deep river valley rich with minerals and fertile soil. 300,000 people called it home. Scientists, engineers, farmers, and their families. Deploying observation drones, Lieutenant Soo-min Kim announced, her fingers steady despite the growing dread everyone felt. The bridge fell silent as the first images appeared on the main view screen. Where the colonial capital should have been, only blackened earth remained. Buildings were reduced to foundations. Roads ended in craters. The farms that once stretched to the horizon were ash. Captain Park stood motionless, his hands clasped behind his back. Only the tightness of his jaw revealed his emotion. "Survivors?" he asked quietly. Lieutenant Kim studied her readings for a long moment before answering. "None detected, sir." She tapped her console. "No life signs in any settlement area. Air quality indicates recent massive energy weapon discharge." "Who did this?" whispered Young Me, forgetting protocol. No one answered. No one could. "Send down the investigation team," Park ordered. "Full hazard protocols. I want to know exactly what happened here." 6 hours later, Commander Jin Ho led the ground team through the ruins of what had been the Colonial Administration building. Most of it was gone, but the underground data center remained partially intact, protected by layers of reinforced concrete and steel. "We found something, Captain," Jin Ho reported over the comm. "A data core. It's damaged, but our tech thinks she can recover the final system logs." Back on the horizon, the bridge crew gathered around as the recovered files were prepared for viewing. The ship's AI sorted through the corrupted data, piecing together fragments until a final video transmission appeared. The face of Governor Tai-Young Lee filled the screen. He was a dignified man in his 60s, known for his calm leadership. Now his face showed terror. Smoke filled the background. Alarms blared. "This is Governor Lee of New Eden Colony," he began, his voice steady despite everything. "Unknown vessels appeared in our system 3 hours ago. They did not respond to communication attempts. They destroyed our orbital defenses without warning." The image shook as an explosion sounded nearby. "They are methodically destroying everything," Lee continued. "Their weapons are like nothing we've encountered. Our shelters offer no protection." Someone shouted off-screen. Lee looked away, then back at the camera with renewed urgency. "We see their ships landing now. The attackers, they aren't human. This is humanity's first contact with an alien species, and they've come only to destroy." His expression hardened. "If anyone receives this, remember us. Remember New Eden. Ensure this never happens again. We err." The transmission ended abruptly. Silence filled the bridge. Captain Park stared at the blank screen, his hands gripping the back of a chair so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Orders, sir?" asked his first officer. "Continue the investigation," Park said quietly. "I want everything we can salvage. and scan for any trace of these attackers. Energy signatures, residue from their weapons, anything that might tell us who they are and where they went. The next day brought more grim discoveries. The investigation team found evidence that the attack had been precise and deliberate. Every human settlement, no matter how small, had been destroyed. Even isolated research stations in the mountains had been targeted. "Sir," Lieutenant Kim called from her station, "the science team has found something." She brought up new images on the main screen. They showed strange marks in the soil near the colony's main power plant. "These are footprints," she explained. "Non-human. The attackers did land, as Governor Lee reported. More data appeared alongside the images. We've detected trace biological material, unknown DNA structure. And this," she highlighted a section of soil analysis, "residual energy readings consistent with advanced propulsion technology. We can track where they came from." Captain Park nodded slowly. "So we have a trail." "Yes, sir. And one more thing." Kim's voice became tight. "A pattern of destruction, the thoroughness. The science team believes this wasn't random. The attackers knew exactly what they were doing. This was extermination." Park turned to his communications officer. "Young Me, prepare all our findings for immediate transmission to Earth Command. Priority Alpha." As the horizon began its journey home, Park stood alone in his quarters, staring at the stars. In all of human history, across centuries of wars and conflicts, nothing compared to what he had witnessed. An entire colony, wiped out without provocation or warning. Earth received the news with stunned silence. The images and data from New Eden spread quickly. People gathered in homes and public spaces to watch Governor Lee's final message. The silence that followed wasn't just shock. It was something deeper, something primal. Within 24 hours, that silence transformed into resolve. Humanity had encountered its first alien species, and that encounter had ended in unprovoked slaughter. There would be no debate about first contact protocols now. No philosophical discussions about peaceful coexistence. For the first time in centuries, humanity united with a single purpose. The United Earth Council chamber was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from every nation, colony, and orbital habitat had gathered for the emergency session. The massive room, with its high ceiling and circular arrangement of seats, had never been so full. Even the observation galleries overflowed with military officers, scientists, and media. At the center table sat the Security Council, 12 men and women who would guide humanity's response to the New Eden massacre. The evidence from the UES horizon played on screens throughout the chamber. Governor Lee's final message. The ruins, the alien footprints. President Jun Ho-yoon called for order as voices grew heated. A tall man with silver hair and tired eyes, Yoon had led Earth through economic crises and natural disasters. But this was different. This was an attack on humanity itself. "We will proceed with calm and purpose," Yoon stated firmly. "Each Security Council member will speak in turn." Councillor Ji-woo Bai rose first, a small woman with short gray hair and a reputation for caution. She had represented the Asian coalition for 15 years. "We cannot rush to war against an unknown enemy," she argued, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "We know almost nothing about these aliens, their numbers, their technology, their reasons. A hasty military response could lead to greater disaster." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some nodded in agreement. Others scowled. "What do you suggest instead?" asked Councillor Danbai Park from the Outer Colonies Alliance. "Should we send diplomats to creatures who slaughtered 300,000 people without warning?" Ba shook her head. "I suggest we gather more information. Send stealth vessels to observe, learn their weaknesses, then decide our response." Admiral Hyun-woo Kang could contain himself no longer. The military leader slammed his fist on the table, making water glasses jump. A career naval officer with burn scars down one side of his face, Kang had spent decades protecting human settlements from various threats. New Eden wasn't a military outpost, he growled. It was families, scientists, farmers, children. The youngest victim was 3 months old. He pointed to the evidence screens. The aliens didn't just attack. They hunted down every human being. They searched shelters. They tracked people trying to escape into the mountains. Kang stood, his massive frame towering over the table. Each hour we delay gives these harbingers time to attack another colony. How many more will die while we gather information? The debate raged for days. Some counselors sided with Ba, urging caution and more intelligence gathering. Others backed Kang's call for immediate military action. The arguments grew personal. Accusations of cowardice met charges of recklessness. On the third day, Security Director Min-ji Choi requested the floor. The room quieted. Choi rarely spoke at these sessions, preferring to work behind the scenes. Her intelligence network was the best humanity had ever built. Choi stepped to the central podium. A slender woman in her 40s with intelligent eyes, she carried a single datapad. The science team from the horizon has made a breakthrough, she began. They managed to decode partial transmissions from the attacking vessels. The chamber fell silent. The attackers designated themselves harbingers, Choi continued. Their communication indicates this was a deliberate act to claim territory they believe is theirs by right. She tapped her pad, and new images appeared on the screens, strange symbols and alien text with rough translations. The harbingers consider themselves a superior species with the right to expand wherever they wish. Their messages refer to humans as temporary infestation and vermin. The attack on New Eden wasn't random or a misunderstanding. It was a test to see how we would respond. Choi looked around the room, meeting the eyes of key council members. Based on their communications, the harbingers have already selected their next targets. 3 more colonies, all within 50 light-years of New Eden. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted questions and demands. President Yoon called repeatedly for order. When the noise finally subsided, Admiral Kang spoke quietly. How long do those colonies have? Based on the harbingers' travel patterns, Choi replied, 2 months, perhaps less. Counselor Ba, who had argued for restraint, closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, her expression had hardened. This changes everything. If they view us as vermin to be eliminated, then diplomacy is not an option, finished President Yoon. He stood slowly, surveying the chamber. Representatives from Earth's nations sat alongside those from Mars, Venus, the Jovian moons, and distant colonies. Old rivals, former enemies, all united by the threat they now faced. Let us be clear about what we are deciding, Yoon said. If we choose war, it must be decisive. We cannot fight halfway. The harbingers have shown what they intend for humanity. We must show them our response. He nodded to Admiral Kang. Admiral, what would a full military response look like? Kang activated his own display. We would need to convert much of our civilian production to military purposes. Every shipyard, every factory. We would need new weapons, new ships, new tactics. And how long would this take? Asked a counselor from the African Union. To build a force capable of not just defending our colonies, but taking the fight to the harbingers. At least a year, maybe more. A year during which more colonies could be attacked, noted Counselor Park grimly. Yes, admitted Kang. We would need to evacuate the most vulnerable settlements, concentrate our existing forces to protect key populations. The room grew quiet as the enormity of the decision sank in. War on a scale humanity had not seen for centuries. Sacrifices that would affect every person in every settlement. President Yoon looked around the chamber one last time. His eyes settled on a photograph displayed on the main screen. A school in New Eden before the attack. Children laughing, playing under blue skies. Then we leave them no doubt about what happens when you attack humanity, Yoon said firmly. We will build a fleet unlike anything in our history. We will find these harbingers, and we will ensure they never threaten another human colony. The vote was called. Across the chamber, hands raised in support. Even Councillor Ba, who had urged caution, voted yes. The decision was unanimous. Operation Iron Memory was initiated. As the council adjourned, Admiral Kang approached President Yoon. "It begins now," he said quietly. Yoon nodded, his eyes still on the image of the children of New Eden. "Yes, and it only ends when those responsible face justice." That night, the news spread across human space. Production quotas, military recruitment, research directives. Within 24 hours, humanity began to transform itself from a peaceful civilization into a force of vengeance. The Harbingers had awakened something they did not understand. And soon, they would learn exactly what that meant. The shipyards of Mars glowed day and night. Workers moved in endless shifts, their spacesuits illuminated against the dark Martian sky. What had once been a modest facility that produced 10 ships per month now launched 50 ships each week. Han Sol wiped sweat from his brow as he finished welding a section of hull plating. 6 months ago, he had been a construction worker building homes in the Martian colony. Now he built warships. Everyone had new jobs in the war effort. "Break time's over," called his supervisor. "Hull section 47 needs finishing by midnight." Han Sol nodded and picked up his tools. No one complained about the long hours. Everyone remembered the images from New Eden. Similar scenes played out across the solar system. The rings of Saturn, once a peaceful mining area, now swarmed with activity. Massive chunks of ice and rock were harvested, processed, and converted into ship components. The moons of Jupiter housed new weapons factories. Even Venus, with its harsh conditions, hosted automated mining operations in its upper atmosphere. Asteroid mining operations doubled, then tripled their output. Material that would have taken decades to harvest was extracted in months. Some asteroids were converted into weapons themselves, fitted with engines and guidance systems to become massive projectiles. In a research facility orbiting Mercury, engineer Sang-Hoon Ri worked without sleep for 3 days straight. His team had been tasked with solving the greatest challenge in warship design: how to pack more firepower into smaller vessels. "It won't work," said his assistant after their latest test failed. "The energy requirements are too high. The ship would need a power core the size of a building." Ri stared at the data, rubbing his tired eyes. Then he saw it, a pattern in the energy fluctuations. "What if we don't try to contain the energy?" he muttered. "What if we compress it instead?" For the next week, Ri and his team worked on a new approach. They built a prototype the size of a desk. When activated, it channeled energy through a series of quantum fields, compressing it to a fraction of its normal space. The day they tested it, Admiral Kang himself attended remotely. The small device powered up, hummed quietly, and then released a beam of energy that cut through 3 meters of reinforced steel. "The quantum compression drive," Ri announced with tired pride. "It allows a ship the size of a shuttle to carry the firepower of a destroyer." Production began immediately. Within 2 months, the first ships equipped with Key C drives were rolling off the assembly lines. Small, fast, and deadly, they would form the core of humanity's new fleet. Meanwhile, in a space station orbiting Earth, tactician Du Yan Park faced a different challenge. Controlling thousands of warships in battle required a new approach to command and coordination. "Traditional fleet formations won't work," she explained to her team. "We need something more fluid, more adaptive." Park had spent years studying swarm behavior in nature, how birds, fish, and insects moved in coordinated groups without central control. Now she applied those principles to spacecraft. Her swarm combat system used distributed decision-making. Each ship contained an AI that communicated constantly with nearby vessels, sharing data and responding to threats together. No single ship was vital. The fleet could lose hundreds of vessels and still function as a coherent fighting force. "Show me the simulation again," Park ordered. On the holographic display, thousands of blue dots representing human ships faced red dots representing the enemy. As the simulation ran, the blue swarm shifted, adapted, surrounded, and overwhelmed the more rigid red formation. When the system was implemented, it allowed unprecedented fleet coordination. Ships could respond to attacks as one unit, concentrate firepower where needed, and protect vulnerable areas, all without waiting for orders from command. While engineers and tacticians developed the tools of war, ordinary people prepared to use them. In orbital training stations throughout the solar system, millions of volunteers underwent intense preparation. Private Ju-1 Kim had been a university student when New Eden fell. Now he trained 14 hours a day to become a pilot. In simulation chambers, he learned to fly the new QC-equipped fighters. In physical training, he pushed his body to withstand high-G maneuvers. Again, ordered his instructor after Kim's fighter was destroyed in a simulation. Focus on using the swarm protocols. Don't try to be the hero. Kim nodded and restarted the program. This time, he let his fighter become part of the larger formation, moving in concert with AI-controlled ships. Together, they eliminated the enemy targets. "Better," said the instructor. "Remember, individual brilliance won't win this war. Unity will." In the evenings, Kim and his fellow trainees watched the footage from New Eden. It wasn't required, but they did it anyway. They needed to remember why they fought. Similar training took place for ground forces, though many questioned if the war would ever reach that stage. Special operation teams practiced boarding actions against mock alien vessels. Engineers learned to hack or disable unfamiliar technology. Medics studied xenobiology based on the limited samples recovered from New Eden. 1 year after Operation Iron Memory began, Admiral Kang visited the Mars orbital shipyard. From his observation deck, he watched as newly completed vessels moved into formation. Below, the red planet spun slowly, its surface now dotted with manufacturing facilities. An aide approached with a datapad. "The latest production reports." "Admiral." Kang reviewed the numbers with satisfaction. The initial goal had been ambitious. Build a fleet of 200,000 warships within 5 years. They had already passed 350,000 in just 1 year. At current rates, they would reach 700,000 by the time the fleet launched. 700,000 warships, whispered Kang as he watched the growing fleet from his observation deck. Not for conquest, for justice. Behind him, Captain Da-hyun Park, the officer who had discovered New Eden's fate, stood at attention. "The forward scout ships have located a Harbinger outpost, sir. It appears to be a monitoring station at the edge of what they consider their territory." Kang nodded slowly. "Then we have our first target. Prepare a battle group." He turned to face Park. "You will command it." Park's expression remained professional, but determination flashed in his eyes. "Yes, sir." As Kang turned back to the view screen, he thought about how far humanity had come in just 1 year. From a peaceful, somewhat divided civilization to a unified force building the largest fleet in history. The Harbingers had intended to intimidate humanity, to show their power through New Eden's destruction. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant, and soon that giant would reach out across the stars with a simple message: never again. The Harbinger outpost in the Altair system floated silently against the backdrop of stars. A sleek structure of dark metal and crystalline towers, it served as a forward monitoring station, watching for any signs of the vermin they had eliminated at New Eden. 6 Harbinger warships patrolled nearby, their crews confident in their technological superiority. None of them noticed the small scout ships that entered the system, their stealth technology making them invisible to standard sensors. For 3 days, these human vessels observed the outpost, recording data on defenses, patrol patterns, and communications. On the 4th day, the scout ships sent their findings back to the waiting human battle group. 100 warships, led by Captain Da-hyun Park aboard the UVS Avenger, prepared to move. "All vessels report ready, Captain," said Lieutenant Soo-min Kim from her tactical station. Park nodded. "Begin Operation First Light." The battle group emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. By human standards, it was an enormous force. By the standards of what would come, it was merely the tip of the spear. The Harbinger outpost detected the human fleet too late. Their sensors, designed to find large energy signatures, had never been calibrated to detect the quantum compression drives. By the time alarms sounded, the human ships had already taken position. "They're scrambling their patrol vessels," reported Kim. 6 ships moving to intercept. Park studied the tactical display. "Hold position. Launch the diplomatic vessel." A small, unarmed ship broke away from the human formation. Commander Yunji Ryu sat at its controls. A career diplomat before the war, she had volunteered for this mission specifically. "This is Commander Yunji Ryu of Earth." She transmitted as her vessel approached the midpoint between the fleets. "We represent Earth and her colonies. We seek those responsible for the destruction of New Eden." For several minutes, there was no response. Then a harsh, clicking sound came through the speakers, followed by a mechanical translation. "Unknown vessels, you trespass in Harbinger space. Depart immediately or be destroyed." "We come seeking justice for an unprovoked attack," Ryu replied calmly. 300,000 humans were killed at New Eden. "We demand to speak with your leaders about this act of war." The response came faster this time. The Harbinger voice sounded almost amused. "New Eden, the blue planet in Sector 47. We cleared unwanted pests from our territory. Your species is insignificant. Retreat or join the eradicated." On the bridge of the Avenger, Park's expression hardened as he listened to the exchange. "They don't even remember the name," he said quietly. To them, it was just another extermination. Ryu made one final attempt. "This is your last opportunity to open peaceful dialogue. We have the power to destroy this outpost, but we would prefer to resolve this diplomatically." The Harbinger response was transmitted across all channels, broadcast to every human ship. "Your threats are meaningless. We have cleansed a dozen species more advanced than yours. Your primitive vessels pose no danger. Approach closer, and we will demonstrate true power." Park turned to his communications officer. "Recall Commander Ryu's vessel." As the diplomatic ship returned to the fleet, Park opened a channel to all human vessels. "You've all heard their response. They show no remorse. They consider us pests to be exterminated." He paused. "Remember New Eden. Remember why we're here. Battle Plan Alpha. Execute." Within moments, the human fleet split into 3 groups. The largest group held position, while 2 smaller formations swept around to flank the outpost. The Harbinger ships moved to intercept, their formation rigid and unchanging. They clearly expected the humans to retreat in the face of their advanced technology. The first shots came from the Harbingers, powerful energy beams that could cut through most conventional armor. But the human ships, equipped with the quantum compression drives, were faster and more maneuverable than anything the Harbingers had encountered before. 3 human vessels were hit and destroyed in the opening volley. The rest adapted immediately, their swarm systems allowing them to learn and respond collectively. They spread out, forcing the Harbingers to divide their fire. "Their weapons are powerful but slow to recharge," observed Kim, watching the data flow in. 23 seconds between full power shots. Park nodded. "Exploit the gap. All vessels, implement swarm pattern theta." The human ships began to move in complex, shifting formations. They would approach just close enough to draw fire, then retreat before the Harbinger weapons could lock on. Meanwhile, other vessels would dart in during the recharge period, unleashing their own weapons before pulling back. "They're not adapting," said Kim with surprise. "They keep using the same attack pattern." Indeed, the Harbinger ships maintained their original formation, seemingly unable to adjust to the humans' fluid tactics. Their rigid hierarchy prevented individual captains from making tactical decisions without authorization from their superiors. 2 hours into the battle, 4 of the 6 Harbinger patrol ships had been disabled or destroyed. The remaining 2 retreated to the outpost, seeking the protection of its defense systems. "They're calling for reinforcements," reported the communications officer, intercepting Harbinger transmissions. Nearest support is 3 days away. Park didn't hesitate. We won't be here in 3 days. All vessels close on the outpost. Disable their communications array first, then target defense systems. The human fleet swarmed the outpost, concentrating fire on key systems. The Harbingers fought back fiercely, their weapons cutting through several moored human ships. But they couldn't match the coordinated attacks of Park's forces. Their main generator is exposed, reported Kim. 3 direct hits should disable it. Park gave the order. A squadron of small, fast ships darted through the defensive fire, launched their missiles, and pulled away. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves through the outpost, knocking out power to half its systems. "They're surrendering," said the communications officer with surprise. Park frowned. "Are you certain?" "Yes, sir. They've lowered shields and powered down weapons. They're requesting mercy." The bridge fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Had the people of New Eden been given the chance to surrender? "Prepare boarding teams," Park ordered. "I want their databases, their star charts, everything. And I want prisoners for questioning." He paused. "But no unnecessary casualties. We're not them." The operation to secure the outpost took 6 hours. The Harbingers, once their leadership was captured, offered little resistance. Many seemed shocked that lesser beings had defeated them. From the captured databases, human intelligence officers extracted critical information about Harbinger territory, military capabilities, and society. The picture that emerged was troubling. A species that had been expanding for centuries, eliminating any other intelligent life they encountered. New Eden had not been their first genocide, but humans were the first to fight back effectively. As the battle ended, Admiral Kang received a message from Fleet Intelligence aboard his flagship near Earth. "Analysis of captured data complete. We have located the Harbinger home system." The information was transmitted to all fleet commanders. The Harbinger homeworld lay 70 light-years from human space, a journey of weeks at current speeds. Kang didn't hesitate. All production facilities, increase output. All training centers, accelerate programs. He looked at the star chart showing the Harbinger home system. The main fleet launches in 60 days. Across human space, the news of the victory at Altair spread rapidly. What had been planned as a reconnaissance mission had become humanity's first successful counterattack. For the first time since New Eden, people allowed themselves to hope. But this was just the beginning. The real test would come when the full might of humanity, 700,000 warships and their crews, arrived at the Harbinger homeworld. The forging was complete. Now the sword would strike. The Harbinger throne world loomed large on the view screens as humanity's armada emerged from hyperspace. 700,000 ships appeared like stars suddenly born from darkness. The massive fleet stretched farther than the eye could see. Some vessels were tiny and fast. Others were huge dreadnoughts with weapons that could crack moons. All moved as one, guided by Duyan Park's swarm systems. Admiral Hyunwoo Kang stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Remembrance. After 2 years of planning and building, the moment had arrived. The largest fleet ever created by humans had reached its target. "Harbinger Defense Fleet detected," reported the sensor officer. 4,000 capital ships, 20,000 support vessels. Captain Dahyun Park, now Kang's second-in-command, studied the tactical display. "They outnumber the force we faced at Altair, but our intelligence was correct. They never expected us to reach their home system. They're scrambling to organize." Kang nodded. "Open all channels. Broadcast in their language." The communications officer worked quickly. "Ready, sir." Kang straightened his uniform and spoke clearly. "This is Admiral Hyunwoo Kang of the United Earth Fleet. We represent the 300,000 humans murdered at New Eden and the billions who survived them. Surrender those responsible for that massacre or face annihilation." The bridge crew waited tensely. For several minutes, there was no response. Then the main screen flickered. showing a harbinger for the first time. The alien stood nearly 3 meters tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were large and black, showing no emotion. Humans, it said, its voice translated by computers. Your presence here is unexpected, but changes nothing. You face the Harbinger Empire, rulers of 1,000 worlds. We have destroyed species far greater than yours. You have 1 hour to surrender those responsible, Kang repeated, or we will take them by force. The Harbinger made a sound that might have been laughter. We are the shapers of destiny. We decide which species lives and which dies. Your existence offends us. Your defiance amuses us. Your destruction awaits you. The screen went dark. They're moving their fleet into attack formation, reported Park. Traditional wedge pattern, just as our intelligence suggested. Kang looked at the tactical display. The Harbinger ships were arranging themselves in rigid formations, beautiful in their precision, but predictable in their movements. All vessels, implement Battle Plan Omega, ordered Kang. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. The human fleet began to move, splitting into dozens of smaller formations. Each group had a specific role. Some would target the Harbinger command ships. Others would protect the human carriers. Still others would draw fire away from special operations vessels. The Harbinger High Command responded with an all-out assault. Their first volley destroyed over 100 human ships. Their weapons were powerful, more advanced than anything humans had developed. But the human fleet had numbers, flexibility, and most importantly, a cause that unified them. First wave, engage, ordered Kang. Small, fast ships darted forward, firing their quantum weapons before retreating. The Harbinger front line responded with disciplined counterfire, but the human vessels moved too quickly, their patterns too unpredictable. They're trying to adapt, noted Park as the Harbinger fleet adjusted its formation. But their command structure is slowing them down. Every tactical change requires approval from their hierarchy. The battle spread across the star system. Human ships attacked Harbinger defense platforms orbiting moons and planets. Special forces landed on key installations. The Harbinger response remained powerful, but increasingly disorganized as the fighting continued. By the second day, both sides had suffered heavy losses. Human ships fell by the thousands. Harbinger vessels, though fewer in number, were each more powerful. The space around the throne world filled with debris and the flashes of weapons fire. Admiral, called the communications officer. We're receiving a transmission from Lieutenant Soo-Min Kim's team on the surface. Kim had led a special forces unit to the planet below. Their mission: locate and capture the Harbinger High Command. This is Kim, came her voice, breaking through static. We've reached the central Citadel. Heavy resistance. Requesting orbital support. Kang checked the tactical map. The area around Kim's position was heavily defended. Too risky for a direct strike, he muttered. Then he had an idea. Captain Park, take a strike team. Support Kim's unit. Park looked surprised but nodded quickly. Yes, sir. Within an hour, Park's shuttle landed near Kim's position. The fighting on the surface was intense. Harbinger defenders used powerful energy weapons that could cut through standard armor. But the human forces had the element of surprise and their own determination. Together, Park and Kim led their teams through the massive citadel. The architecture was alien, all sharp angles and dark metals. They fought room by room until they reached the central chamber. There, surrounded by guards, was the Harbinger High Command, 5 tall aliens wearing ornate armor. The leader, distinguished by gold markings, stood in the center. Surrender, ordered Park, his weapon raised. You will answer for New Eden. The Harbinger leader made that strange laughing sound again. You cannot win. Even if you take this world, our empire spans the stars. We will rebuild. We will return. And we will erase your species from existence. Kim stepped forward. Did you give the people of New Eden a chance to surrender? The alien seemed confused by the question. Why would we? They were vermin in our territory. Now, whispered Park into his communicator. From orbit, a precisely targeted strike hit the Citadel's power core. The lights flickered and died. In the darkness, human special forces moved with night vision equipment. When emergency power returned, the Harbinger guards were down, and the High Command was surrounded. "Take them alive," ordered Park. "They will face human justice." The capture of the Harbinger leadership marked the turning point. Without central command, the alien fleet fell into disarray. Some ships continued fighting. Others surrendered. Many fled to distant parts of their empire. By the third day, the battle was effectively over. The Harbinger throne world was under human control. Their mighty fleet was scattered or destroyed. Standing among the ruins of the Harbinger Citadel, Lieutenant Su-Min Kim found herself questioning. Was this justice or vengeance? Park had no easy answer. "Perhaps both," he said quietly. "They gave us no choice. But now we have choices about what happens next." The war did not end instantly. Harbinger forces across their empire continued fighting for months. But without their leadership and main fleet, they could not mount an effective resistance. System by system, they surrendered or retreated beyond known space. 1 year later, a memorial garden bloomed where New Eden once stood. Thousands gathered for the dedication ceremony. Trees and flowers from Earth now grew in soil once scorched by Harbinger weapons. President Jun Ho-yoon, older now and walking with a cane, addressed the assembled survivors and families. "We have won a great victory. We defended humanity when it faced extinction. But now we must remember what makes us human. New Eden was a place of creation, not destruction. Let us honor their memory by building, not just by fighting." Admiral Kang, standing nearby with Park and Kim, nodded in agreement. The war had changed humanity, united them, made them stronger. But it had also shown them how easily they could become like their enemy, seeing other beings as threats to be eliminated rather than potential allies. In the decades that followed, humanity emerged as a galactic power. They rebuilt New Eden and established contact with other species who had hidden from the Harbingers for generations. Some alien races viewed humans with caution, even fear. The species that could defeat the Harbingers was not to be taken lightly. But most came to respect humanity for what happened after the war. The Harbinger leaders were tried fairly. Their empire was not destroyed but reformed. Humans used their new power not for conquest, but for protection. Above all, humanity became known for a single principle, one that spread across the stars. Never again would a human colony fall unanswered, and never again would any peaceful species face extinction while humanity had the power to prevent it. The Harbingers had intended to demonstrate their superiority by destroying one colony. Instead, they had awakened a force that would reshape the galaxy, not through fear, but through justice. The end.